My name is Levi, and this story dates back to the strangest and most unbelievable journey of my life. I was on a late-night train from New York to Boston for an important business trip. The weather was cold, but the warmth inside the train made it bearable. I had a window seat, and the train departed on time. Everything seemed normal. Most of the passengers were either quietly seated or fast asleep. After a while, the train stopped at a station. That's when she boarded, a stunning girl with long black hair and captivating blue eyes. There was something unusually deep about her gaze. She smiled and sat right across from me. "Hello," she greeted warmly. "Hello," I replied. We started chatting casually. She mentioned that it was her first long journey and that she was also heading to Boston. Her voice had a charm that made me want to keep talking. As time passed, we laughed and shared stories. I found her presence delightful. The train eventually entered a deserted stretch of track. Suddenly, the lights dimmed slightly, and an eerie stillness filled the air. "Have you ever felt like some things are more mysterious than they seem?" she asked out of nowhere. "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "Sometimes what you see isn't always the truth," she said cryptically. I was pondering her words when she took off a beautiful ring from her finger and held it out to me. "Keep this. As a souvenir," she said. "But why?" I hesitated. You might need it someday," she replied with a strange smile. Reluctantly, I took the ring. Moments later, she stood up and walked toward the window. Suddenly, there was a strong gust of wind, and the lights flickered off for a moment. When they came back on, she was gone. I looked around frantically, but there was no sign of her. The train hadn't stopped even once. When we reached Boston, I asked the staff about the girl, but no one had seen her board the train. To this day, I still have that ring. Whenever I wear it during a journey and pass by that station, I feel her presence around me. Her voice echoes in my ears. "I'm with you, because my memory is with you." It was almost 11 p.m. The bustling streets of Lahore were slowly emptying, and a light drizzle filled the air. I boarded the bus headed to Karachi, clutching my ticket tightly. The bus was only half full, and the passengers sat in silence. I took my seat, put on my headphones, and lost myself in the rhythm of the music. As the journey began, an uneasy feeling settled in my chest, as if some unseen danger was waiting for me. The bus left the city and merged onto the highway. Raindrops traced mysterious patterns on the windows. I noticed that the driver had taken an unusual route, deviating from the usual path to Karachi. I tried to get up and ask him about it, but he sat motionless, his hands gripping the wheel as if controlled by some unseen force. My heart began to race. I looked around, but the other passengers were all deep in sleep, their heads lolling against the seats. After a while, the bus entered an old, deserted village. The houses were crumbling, their walls covered in strange symbols, and an eerie silence hung over the place. Suddenly, the bus came to a halt. The driver stepped out without a word. One by one, the other passengers rose from their seats and exited the bus. Their faces were blank, their movements mechanical, as if they were under some kind of spell. I decided to stay inside the bus, but then I heard a raspy voice behind me. "You shouldn't be here." I turned around and saw an old woman standing there. Her hair was disheveled, and her eyes were completely white. She was smiling, but her smile sent a chill down my spine. I asked, trembling, "Where is this place? And who are these people?" The old woman replied softly, "This is where those who never reach their destination end up. Your ticket was wrong. You weren't supposed to be here." I looked at my ticket and saw that it was completely blank, as if nothing had ever been printed on it. The old woman grabbed my hand and said, "Come, I'll show you the way." She led me to an ancient graveyard on the outskirts of the village. The gate of the graveyard bore a strange symbol that I couldn't recognize. The old woman warned, Don't go inside, or you'll meet those who want to take you with them." But I didn't listen. I pushed the gate open and stepped inside. The graveyard was filled with figures shrouded in white, their eyes fixed on me. Their faces were twisted into horrifying smiles. I felt my body go numb, as if I couldn't move or escape. Suddenly, I woke up. I was back in my seat on the bus, which was now speeding down the highway to Karachi. The driver and the other passengers were all normal, as if nothing had happened. I checked my ticket, and it was perfectly fine, but on my hand was the same strange symbol I had seen on the graveyard gate. When I finally arrived in Karachi, I tried to convince myself that it had all been a dream. But the symbol on my hand told me otherwise. To this day, whenever I travel by bus, I feel like someone is watching me, and the old woman's voice echoes in my ears, "You shouldn't be here." It was a long journey. I was traveling on the Continental Express from Los Angeles to New Mexico for work. My job often required me to take long-distance trips like this. The train left the station right on time. Everything seemed normal. Soft chatter filled the air, and some passengers were already dozing off in their seats. I had plenty of time, so I decided to catch up on some work. The first part of the journey was smooth, with the train making regular stops and continuing on its route. At one station, the train halted, and that's when a strange passenger boarded and sat directly across from me. At first glance, he looked like an ordinary traveler, wearing a black suit, his hair slightly messy, and his eyes tinged with a faint redness. There was something unsettling about his appearance, but I brushed it off. "Hello," he greeted in a calm but cold voice. I nodded politely. "Hello." After that, he went completely silent. The train resumed its journey, but his silence felt odd. Occasionally, he would stare at me without saying a word. It made me uncomfortable, so I finally broke the ice. "Where are you headed?" I asked. He gave a faint smile. "Wherever you're going." His response was strange, but I chose to ignore it. A few moments passed before he began asking questions. "Are you tired of life?" His question caught me off guard. "No, not at all," I replied, confused. "Interesting. People often are, but they rarely admit it," he said with a cryptic smile. I didn't respond. A few moments later, he asked another question. "Have you ever thought about something happening on a journey that you never expected?" "What do you mean?" I asked, puzzled. "I mean, what if a passenger wasn't supposed to be here at all?" His tone was cold, and his words sent a shiver down my spine. I told myself he was just a weird guy trying to make conversation. A little later, he stood up and said, "I need to use the restroom." He walked away, and I returned to my thoughts. Minutes passed. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, but he never returned. It was strange because the train hadn't made any stops during that time. A sense of unease crept over me. I decided to check on him. I made my way to the restroom, but it was completely empty. There was no sign of the passenger. I checked the other side of the carriage, but he had completely vanished. My mind raced. The train hadn't stopped, so where could he have gone? When I returned to my seat, another shock awaited me. On his seat was a small diary. My hands trembled as I picked it up. On the first page, a single sentence was written. "You're no longer traveling alone. I'm always with you now." I couldn't comprehend what was happening. Suddenly, the lights inside the train flickered. Strange noises echoed around me. I felt a chilling breath near my neck as if someone was standing right behind me. I turned around, but there was no one there. His words echoed in my mind. "Have you ever thought about something happening on a journey that you never expected?" I realized then that the passenger wasn't an ordinary man. Perhaps he wasn't a man at all. He had come to make me part of his journey, and now I was destined to be his companion forever.